still coming to you live from the Cape Town International Convention Center. Now, you might have picked up that from our previous conversations, if we're not talking about youth development, a common theme that also has been announced here at the forum has to be the role of technology as an enabler for economic growth. To tell us more about this, I'm joined by Mr. David Meads. He's the Vice President for Cisco in Africa. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
My pleasure.
Let's take a look at the role of technology. We always hear about it. It can help Africa leapfrog certain areas of development. From your perspective, how are we doing and faring when it comes to using technology efficiently?
Sure. Well, you touched on it, and this is my sixth WEF event of Africa, and it's the first of those where, as you say, there's a strong theme of the role that ICT and digitalisation has to play in enabling the growth across Africa. So I think that in itself is tremendous progress. I've been in and working across Africa now for 6 years. First 3 of those living in South Africa, the last 3 travelling across Africa, and I've seen a tremendous rate of change over that period of time. So I would say that there's a lot of work being done. However, I would say there's still a long way to go. One of the things that we do, and particularly when we partner with WEF, is co-author the Global IT Report, Global Information Technology Report. And there's a particular theme in that called the Network Readiness Index, which talks about a country's readiness in terms of utilisation of ICT and the impact that ICT has in that country. It's 143 countries that participate. It's not just developing countries, it's also very mature and established countries. So it's interesting when you look at some of the results that we're seeing. You know, we've got some great examples of where countries in Africa are moving ahead and outpacing other countries. Rwanda springs to mind, which I think we hear talked about often. I think out of 143 countries, they rank 12th. Wow. In terms of the government's usage. Now, they don't rank quite so highly overall, but they're certainly moving up quickly. And we've actually only got 4 years of data for Rwanda. But 12th in terms of government usage worldwide is a pretty impressive statistic. The challenge you've got is even if you're moving forward, you may be moving down those ratings because there's a lot of countries who are moving quicker. And it really is a global race.
What is it that these other countries that are leading the pack have to create this enabling environment? Is it policies and legislative framework?
Yeah, it's a great question, and because actually most of the governments that I meet with as I travel around Africa and come to these sort of events, I can't think of one I have had a conversation with where they don't have a clear vision. The challenge is not many of them have a plan as to how they're going to execute on that strategy. So you know, you'll hear governments around the world, not just Africa, talk about our vision to have every citizen connected to broadband by 2020 or 2030, and that's a laudable vision, and you know, we encourage that. But how they realise that's the challenge, and at what, you know, having everybody connected, great. At what speed? At what cost of access? And what do you need to do? What can the government do to enable that and accelerate that? So many of the conversations we're having this week are with government leaders about how we feel we can help bring experience from working around the world, using some of the experience we have within Cisco to help to accelerate that and help to build an execution plan, not just a vision. Is government responsive to the calls? I haven't had one meeting where they're not. The challenge is, of course, they have many competing priorities. You know, whether it's healthcare, education, safety and security, job creation, and we understand that. And I'm not a politician, I don't understand the pressures and the complexities of that. But what I do know is that ICT should not be a competing priority. It should actually be the priority that underpins those. Yeah. You know, if you have your foundational ICT strategy in place, how can you digitize your country? Then actually, with the right strategy, you can accelerate your healthcare agenda, your education agenda. Imagine if you had every student in South Africa, that's where we are today, connected to broadband, connected to libraries, connected to classrooms, whether they're in a rural environment or whether they're in a, you know, Johannesburg or Cape Town, and equalise, neutralise that education experience, give them the same opportunity to have access to the same teachers, the same curriculum. The only way you can do that is with technology. Ditto with healthcare. Clinicians, doctors, hospitals, everybody connected over broadband. If you're in a rural village where it could take hours or days to get help and healthcare, if you're connected to broadband, and many communities are connected to broadband, although there's much to do there, then again, it's a great leveler. Everybody can have access to the same technologies. And there's some great examples of that happening across Africa.
David,
So
it sounds like a
much hope.
phenomenal initiative, but obviously for private sector players as well, like you, to come on board, it needs to be a bankable project. Are we finding that that is taking place, where, number one, the incentives for the private sector to come on board are provided in order for them to meet their objectives regarding profitability?
Yeah, look, it's essential. The only way we're going to realise this is by government and private sector working more closely together. We've got some great examples of where that's happening, particularly in the area of talent development, because of course it's one thing having the technology, having the vision, but when we talk about having a strategy to execute, a big part of that has to be the talent, because there is a massive gap in terms of the ICT skills that we need. By the way, a global gap, not just an Africa gap. And an example of what we're trying to do as a public-private partnership is our Networking Academy program. So we have 810 academies across 47 countries in Africa. A little known statistic, we tend to hide our light under a bushel when it comes to what we're doing. But 810 academies, in the last 12 months alone, we've had over 92,000 students go through those academies. Those students can be getting an education, anything from basic ICTs and ICT essentials to industry recognized certifications that Cisco rolls out. So 92,000 students in 12 months. Since inception, 250,000 students. 32% of those are female. So there's a great example there of what industry and public sector can do together to try and build out the platform to help execute on this vision, and talent is a key part of it.
Sounds like a phenomenal story, David. You're definitely playing a hand at transforming the technological space in Africa.
Well, it's exciting. It's a great opportunity. I love being in Africa because it's such a land of opportunity, some great innovation. If we can just tap into that, unlock it, the potential is enormous.
Thank you so much for your time today. Such a pleasure speaking to you.